Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Trip, a psychedelic therapy podcast with me, Dr. Esme Dark. During this podcast, I'll be bringing you conversations with thought leaders and other inspiring humans, exploring a wide variety of themes relating to the use of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy in the healing of human distress. Whether you're an aspiring therapist, already a therapist, or just simply interested in the emerging field of psychedelic therapy, then this podcast is for you. Join me for a journey into the psychedelic world. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the unceded land on which this podcast is recorded, the Wadawurrung people. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Trip. I'm delighted to be able to bring you another conversation with Dr. Bill Richards. He was our first guest in episode 1 of season 1 of Beyond the Trip, and he is a true pioneer in the psychedelic research space. He's been involved in this work since the beginning, from the original research that took place in the 60s up until the present day. He is someone who I deeply respect and whose work has been very influential on me personally. It didn't feel enough just to have Bill come on the podcast just once. I had so many topics that I wanted to talk more with him about. And today we dive into one of those, which is his work in the palliative care space, something that he's been involved in since the early days. At times, this conversation leans in a little more into our personal experiences with grief and loss. It's such a human topic. It felt wrong not to mention this. We also explore why psychedelic therapy is helpful in people with life-limiting illnesses, such as cancer. We talk about what cancer patients report after using psychedelic-assisted therapy. And we talk about the importance of involving the family in the healing process. We get into the somatic sensations of grief and how that shows up in the body. And we talk about how societal views on death and dying are in the West, and get curious about whether psychedelics could help us to shift these. Bill has an extensive history in this space. He first became involved in psychedelic research in 1963, and he was actually the last person to be able to legally administer psychedelic therapy as part of a research trial before the original research was shut down in 1977. He is a key figure in the reemergence of psychedelic research and began his work with Roland Griffith and Mary Cosimano at Johns Hopkins University. He has a particular interest in the use of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy in palliative care, and that's what we're going to be diving into today. He's the consultant and trainer at multiple sites of psychedelic research internationally, including Monash University, where I work. At Sunstone Therapies, he serves as a senior advisor. And his book, Sacred Knowledge, Psychedelic and Religious Experiences, has been translated into multiple languages. I highly recommend this book for anyone who's interested in this field. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, along with a paper that he's recently published about psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. So, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I'm delighted to be able to bring you some more of Bill's wisdom. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the podcast, Bill. It's so wonderful to have you here joining us again today, and feel so lucky that you have been able to come for a part 2. Really pleased about that. Part 1 was so wonderful and such a beautiful way to start the whole podcast project. And now I'm nearing the end of the recording of season 1 and starting to record season 2. So really, really honored to have you as part of that.
Well, thank you very much for including me again. It's an honor to be part of a project like this.
Yes, thank you. And you know, last time we for anyone listening who hasn't heard it, this very first episode of this podcast was an interview with Bill Richards. So do pop back and have a listen to that. Today, we're going to be kind of focusing in on a particular area of interest for you, which is your work in the palliative care space with psychedelics. And so that's something that I've been interested in for a long time as well. And there's been different research projects happening over here in Australia, of course, with Marg Ross and her team. Was one of the first trials that was looking at psilocybin in cancer patients. But would love to just start from the beginning for you. Like when this work in the palliative care space started early in the piece for you, I think. But actually, I don't know exactly where. So when did you get interested in working with psilocybin or psychedelics with palliative care, and why?
Yeah, well, when I was 27 years old, living in Boston at the time, I was offered a job in Baltimore where psychedelic research was going on.
Yes.
And at the Spring Grove Hospital Center, they had two U.S. government federal grants for psychedelic research, one in the treatment of alcoholism and one in the treatment of personality disorders, hospitalized, very depressed people. And but they were also just starting to work with cancer patients, quite terminal patients at the time. And that intrigued me, especially, maybe in part because I was trained both in theology, psychology of religion, as well as clinical psychology, and caring about people, whether in a pastoral way or a psychotherapeutic way, made sense to me.
Yeah.
The research had just begun with cancer patients in Baltimore. And the way it began is that a social worker on the staff developed advanced breast cancer. And they had witnessed how helpful it was to many of the alcoholics and people suffering from depression from other causes, and thought, well, let's give her some and see if it's helpful. And she discussed it with her family, and they decided to go ahead. And she had an incredibly meaningful, positive, helpful experience that just enabled her to live more fully the time that was left. And then that launched getting grant support. I think it was from the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation way back then.
What year was this, Bill?
This was 1967.
So back in the early days. Hey?
Yeah, I was younger then. But I treated maybe the fourth or fifth person in the study when I moved here. And each person I worked with was just uniquely meaningful, is the best I can say. These were people who were bedridden in single hospital rooms, and just thankful for anything that might help their depression or anxiety or pain, for that matter.
Yeah.
And led to a study. This first study was with LSD. And then we did was PT, dipropyltryptamine, a shorter acting psychedelic. Well, now psilocybin is ongoing that I'm involved with.
Yeah.
But, must be at least a couple hundred patients by now who have gone through there. And no one has been harmed.
Wow. Yeah.
Some people have benefited more dramatically than others. But I haven't met a single person who regretted going through the research project. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think and so it sounds like it was kind of something that happened quite, in a way, organically within the team. I didn't know that someone
Yes.
that was going through that, and cancer is something that is so widespread. It can touch so many people's lives, So it's so beautiful to have this way of working. And so you kind of were involved in that early research, and now tell us about that, the journey that you've been on with this work. Take that wherever you want, because it's probably a long story. But, that sounds like that was in the 60s, and then now you're still working in this space. In fact,
believe it or not, people are still mortal in 2024. Death isn't just something that sometimes happens to other people. It's part of life for all of us.
Yeah.
And we kind of tend to live in denial of it. And maybe that's not very healthy. One of my big hopes is that gradually this research will normalize dealing with death. And just as birth is not taboo, why should death be taboo?
Absolutely.
We come in for what Buddhists call one precious human life, and we live it as fully as we can. And then it's time to say, so long, I'm off to new adventures or whatever is next. And the value of the psychedelic therapy, it's hard to put it into one sentence because there are so many different states of consciousness that can be experienced during the action of a psychedelic. And some may not be transcendental, mystical, archetypal at all. They may just be ordinary dealing with guilt and grief and traumas and family relationships. But at the very least, it's very intensive psychotherapy.
Yes.
And just on that level, people are just, it gets them out of their isolation. So often people are kind of lying in bed, more or less, not wanting anyone to see them this way. Estranged from family, just waiting for the next dose of pain medication. Like they're barely living.
Yeah.
And to see those people come alive. I mean, literally, we had recently a person who said, well, I don't know if we have a group therapy of cancer patients going on. And, there's this line. One of them said, well, I don't know which of us is going to die next, but I'm off to Europe.
Right.
But I mean, they are literally living until they die.
Yes.
And my hunch is, though we haven't done research in it in any respectable way yet, but that many of these people seem to live much longer than they're expected to. And my hunch is that when you're engaged in life and you're eating well and you're enjoying relationships and you're taking your medication as prescribed, your immune system works better. And some of these people, there are some who were expected to die 4 years ago who are still alive, Not everyone, but it makes you think. When there's remission, of course, the surgeon says it's because of the wonderful surgery, and the radiologist says it's because of the great radiology, and the chemotherapist says it's because of chemotherapy, but who knows? Maybe it's all together, but the psychological will to live and fullness of living is an important piece of that, I think.
I think so too. And I think, there's a lot of research into that space in general, isn't there? But we don't know yet for sure, right? But it feels true. And I was going to ask you, like, why do you think it is so helpful? And maybe that's why, because it helps people to go into those deeper places. There might be an intensive psychotherapy that they're doing with themselves. Yeah. They might also have a mystical type experience sometimes, although not everyone. Mm-hmm. And what are the kind of things that people reported from the research back in the day and now that you think has been really helpful?
Yeah, you may know Carl Jung. His framework is that we each have a personal unconscious, i.e. experiences from birth to the present, but we also have a collective unconscious. Where how to understand that is a mystery. Is it genetically encoded? Is it in our DNA? Is it spiritually accessed? Whatever the spiritual is, we really don't know. But when these transcendental experiences open up, it seems obvious that human consciousness is indestructible. It's what religions call immortality. Now, it could be a big delusion, but it sure is convincing when you're there. It just seems like, is water wet? Of course it's wet. Is consciousness indestructible? Well, of course it's indestructible.
Yeah.
But that knowledge feels more fundamental, more real. Like it's not like the typical nocturnal dream. It's like I'm remembering something I forgot. And people call that homecoming often, or awakening spiritually. Oh my gosh, the eternal world is outside of time, and it's always been there. And I'm connected to it, and it's part of me, and it's part of everyone else. And that awareness is so intuitively convincing that people claim to have lost their fear of death, for example. That doesn't mean they want to speed up the death.
Yes.
You know what? No, I haven't seen anyone get suicidal. But they will treasure each moment they're given. I like very much the Zen Buddhist framework that the eternal world is not only before birth and after death, but it's in the middle of the present moment, a portal that you can go through while your heart is beating and your lungs are breathing if you can just wake up. It's a very nice framework.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? That that kind of being able to be really in the present, in that moment is also about living till you die, right? Like being in the now and engaging with life and the things that people have spoken about after these journeys, and that okay, maybe they need to resolve that conflict they have with that family member, and how do they do that? And then maybe they want to go to Europe, like you're saying.
I mean, it doesn't transform people into virtual saints, In fact, that first in the report of that first volunteer at Spring Grove, she wrote, I am still me. I get irritated occasionally and yell.
Yes,
but I'm more at peace.
Yeah. I really like. I'm sure you probably do the book "Staring at the Sun" by Irving Yalom. He talks. He talks about this idea of he's all about the people's fear of death, right? And this kind of death anxiety that a lot of us live with, and how that can be underneath certain types of psychological issues. But also he talks a lot about that when you actually work with people around their fear of death, and this isn't necessarily terminally ill people, it could be, you know, a client who comes and underneath their anxiety in general is this kind of fear of death, that often what it's about is a life not fully lived. And that actually to resolve that for them, you can kind of think about, okay, so what would you do in your life that would be different, that would make you feel less afraid to die, right? Maybe it is to have that conversation with that relative you didn't speak to for 10 years, or to make it, or to go overseas, or to change your career, you know, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's one of the saddest things in working with terminally ill people, where they say, now it feels too late. You know, should I have changed my career? Should I have gone back to school? Should I have developed my interest in music or art? Should I have given up on that hopeless marriage? Or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, it's almost too late, you know?
Yeah.
So there's regret. There's a grieving that's part of preparing for death. I have to accept this lifetime as it is. Yeah. I've done what I could. Maybe I can still do a few things at the end, but basically it is what it is. Yeah. I had children or I didn't have children. I went to college or I didn't go to college. You know, I had a beautiful garden or I never planted anything.
Yeah.
And, so there's a kind of owning of this unique lifetime.
Yeah,
and,
like accepting.
And respecting it. You know? One life one lifetime at a time, okay?
That's
let's finish this one well. You know?
Yeah, let's finish this one well. It seems like that's one of the things that comes up for people. And I think it's important, like you say, like people are still themselves. They still might get grumpy. It's not to say it's going to be this kind of miracle of any kind exactly, but it can still be really beautiful. And maybe we started to get into this. My next kind of question, you know, my background, my first job actually was as a grief counselor. So I actually, before I finished my doctorate in clinical psychology, where we do all our placements and rotations, I worked in a childhood bereavement charity. So with kids where parents died, or brother or sister actually. And then I went on to work there in various forms for years in different contexts, different ways. And it taught me so much about life and kind of death and how I wanted to live. And I'm curious for you, what has working with the dying taught you about life and death and being in this world? Big question.
Good question. A person is a person is a person, whether they're terminally ill or not. And it's a privilege to get to know people, especially people different from yourself, you know, with different life histories, different cultures, different childhood traumas, whatever. I always feel that every therapeutic dyad of therapist and patient is unique. And you kind of treasure that opportunity and tune into one another. You know, you can't just apply a manual that you impose on everyone. And what unfolds can be incredibly meaningful. Sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's not. But just to see in a particular family, old resentments heal, communication open up. You know, there's so much depression, I think, and anxiety that is nurtured by unresolved grief.
Totally
words of forgiveness that were never spoken. Dying with old resentments, you can almost feel the tense muscles, and it doesn't have to be that way, And it's not only how this treatment can help the dying patient, but it helps the whole family. And the patient becomes, in a sense, a teacher of the family, because each of them has to die someday too. So it's a bit like, watch me and I'll show you how to do it well. And there's no reason we can't have some music and laughter and even nibble on whatever food we like on my last day of life. There can be a lightness, a playfulness, and then finally, well, so long, guys, it looks like, my body wants to go into a kind of a deep trance. It's time, take care. I'm out of here. But without anxiety. And with closeness. It's each family decides what's meaningful for them, Whether you want to die in silence or with music or alone or surrounded by family. I'm often struck at how many people in the hospital die when the family member finally leaves for a minute to go down to the cafeteria. And it's like, 100%. Finally alone.
It's so true. My grandfather did that, Bill. I was just thinking, we went in, we were called in. My grandfather was like a second dad to me. We were super, super close. And so I was very grateful that I was still in England when he got sick, and I still was living there so I could go. We got called in 4 times to the hospital, the whole family, all the, myself, my dad and all the uncles. We all went in every time and we waited, and sometimes we waited in the middle of the night for hours. And he decided to go when we weren't there because he obviously wanted to go by himself. Which is fine.
It's a very special personal experience when it comes time to die, and what you want to share and what you don't want to share is your own business, This is kind of between me and God, if you want to see it that way,
Yeah, absolutely. Totally, yeah. And I think I was going to ask, actually, maybe take it to... So now you're working, you've got a group of patients that you're seeing after this, haven't you? Cancer patients. So tell us what you're doing at the moment and what this service looks like at the moment, or the research that's going on looks like. So do you work with families as well as the person? I actually don't. It'd be interesting for the listeners to hear
right now, we're still in the research phase.
Yeah.
We're not quite as advanced as Australia almost is.
Well, yes, we're getting there.
We're getting there. At the Aquilino Cancer Center in Sunstone Therapies, where I'm a senior advisor right now, they call me. We have 2 projects going or about to start with cancer patients. And actually 3. There's one with MDMA that includes a close family member. Right. They have 2 sessions, one in separate rooms and one together in the same room.
Oh, wow. So they both take the medicine?
Yeah.
Great.
So the family member gets to receive the drug too, which is very promising and can be very meaningful. The others are typically with psilocybin. You have a deep experience, and we help you integrate it as meaningfully as possible, whatever happens. But my the vision many of us share is that the day is not far off where psychedelic therapy will be integrated into the mental health offerings in palliative care, and many oncology centers will offer psychedelic therapy. You know, always, never required, certainly, but an option, and it can be a very meaningful option. And can help with the psychological and the physical distress of coping with cancer. And of course, not only cancer, but other life-threatening conditions.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't look at the MDMA research because I can imagine that close family member, there's so much that they're processing too in terms of the person who has the illness, has cancer, and to give them that space to come together and to take some medicine, some MDMA, and to have that deeper, perhaps have some of those hard conversations that can feel so difficult,
One, if I can make mention of my book, Sacred Knowledge, in that book, there's a description of a patient who comes to mind who was just being kind of overprotected by the family. They didn't think she could handle her diagnosis, so they didn't want to tell it to her, and they were colluding against her, and she was depressed. And finally, she broke through the denial, and her husband confessed that, yeah, you do have cancer. And then she sent her two young children in early teens off to summer camp, hoping to be dead before they returned. And then she experienced a psychedelic therapy session, in her case with LSD. And at the end of her session, which was not dramatically spiritual, it was kind of living years and years of loneliness and crying profusely. But it wiped out her depression. And at the end of the day, when the family came in and gathered around her bedside, I remember her mother-in-law, who she had a very tense, formal relationship with, bent over to give her a kiss. And the patient reached out and grabbed her wig and yanked it off. And then sat up in bed regally and say, now let's get something straight. It is true that I have cancer and I am going to die, but I am not dead yet. I mean, if we had filmed it, it would be the highest quality. It was just so, everyone had a good cry, but it broke through all this tippy-toeing denial in the family system. She called her kids home from summer camp and prepared each of them individually for her death, and so on. And she lived fully that last chapter of life,
Yeah. And I think, that's such a beautiful example of how, if you can get there, that, there's lots actually that I want to say about that. And one of the things is that, my experience, like depression, like you were saying before, there's often unresolved grief in there, but also unresolved emotion that gets stuck, right? Depressed is what I often say to clients is depression is feelings pushed down sometimes, and they can be stuck. And so psilocybin or other psychedelics, I think, can really help people to kind of move through some of that process it,
That's right. And if you tap into unresolved grief from death 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's not a bad trip.
Yeah.
That's
No.
intensive psychotherapy,
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
often when you have to confront your own death, you have to also deal again with the deaths of people you have loved in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And so do the people around you too, because bereavement of one person brings up bereavement of others, doesn't it?
That's right.
I was just thinking as you're talking about like some of the things that we used to do. I worked at the charity I worked at it's still called Winston's Wish. There's one in Australia called Wombat's Wish. But one of the things that we would do, we had the kind of arm of the organization that worked after someone had died. And then when I first started working there, we would work with parents when they were dying. So usually of like cancer or something like that. And this kind of really poignant, beautiful work of kind of with one client where we wrote letters to her children at 15, at 18, at 21, because they were young when she was dying. And so she was able to do that and to kind of they were able to keep those letters. But if she hadn't been able to face the fact that she was dying, which is so hard to do, I imagine if you have children, I mean, I can't even imagine how hard that would be, but she was able to do that with the therapeutic support that we had given her and other people, not just me, and to write to them. And they had those letters then as they grew.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the example in my book of the death of my own first wife.
Yes.
After a beautiful 20-year marriage. But it's interesting. She was a psychiatric nurse who worked with me giving psychedelics to cancer patients.
Yeah.
So I remember when we got the diagnosis that she had breast cancer, we kind of looked at one another and said, gee, if anyone can handle this, we ought to be able to. But it really brought it home.
Yeah.
And she lived for a full decade after diagnosis, very, very fully. But eventually, the time came that the cancer was advancing. You could feel the metastases in her shoulders. There was no denying that death was getting close. And we have two sons. They were 11 and 13 at the time. And so we had to prepare our sons for her death, and we did the best we could. I think we did a pretty decent job, actually.
I'm sure.
I remember the night before she died, she spent time with each of the sons, kind of telling them everything you need to hear from your mother, And one of them said, gee, he tape recorded his conversation with her.
Oh, beautiful.
And it includes, gee, Mommy, I wish you didn't have to die. And she retorts, yeah, I wish I didn't have to either. But we have to accept life as it is.
Yeah.
And frankly, that 11-year-old boy is now a 50-year-old psychologist with expertise in the treatment of cancer patients.
Yeah. Yeah. So what a beautiful gift that she was able to give by being able to have that conversation that's had so many ramifications. That's right. He works with you.
So that terrible trauma of childhood in the big picture was almost part of his training, education for the contributions he's making in adulthood,
Yeah.
I find that close to inspiring. Yeah.
It's very inspiring to me, Bill. And so so beautiful, and also would have been so. That's like the beauty and the pain of grief, right? Like grief shows us how much we love, right? And it's like they're two sides of the same thing. So, and that is so. I mean, you were in this position where you were doing this work, and then it happened to you, and it sounds.
Yeah.
That,
grief isn't fun.
No. No.
But it's really part of a healing process, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
No matter how spiritual your concept of death may be, when you lose someone important, your body still needs to grieve. You need to cry. You need to experience muscular contractions,
Yeah.
It's just the way we're built.
It's so physical, isn't it? The feeling of extreme grief and I was just listening to that story and thinking such a beautiful gift that your wife gave her sons. And then also, like thinking about even with all those beautiful conversations and the knowing and the work you've done, I'm sure it was still really, really intense when she did pass away. And I was thinking about, my grandfather, the experience I shared before, and, when he did finally die, which I was absolutely expecting. He'd been in hospital for about 4 weeks at least. I can't quite remember now, but I lost, like my legs just completely went from under me when I got the news. And I was kind of, actually I was working as a psychologist, so I was in a great location for it to happen. There was all these therapists around me, and, they were amazing. My colleagues were just amazing. But there's no getting away from the intensity of that. And that in and through that we talk about in psychedelics that you talk about is so important just for grief in general, isn't it? You got to go into the pain, into the extreme physical discomfort.
Yeah. If I hope this isn't getting too personal, but
no, please.
The night she died, she stopped breathing around 2 a.m. or so, and I was beside her and with her, and we had a dog, a Hungarian Vizsla, that we loved, and the arm of her body was stretched out over the edge of the bed. And the dog kept rubbing his back against her arm, which is kind of interesting. But then around 6 a.m, it was clear the sun was rising, and the dog had to go out. So I crawled out of bed and took the dog out into the backyard. And I live on the edge of this wilderness park, very beautiful, with a river. But I remember thinking, like, if I had come out and there was no breeze and the river had stopped flowing and the birds weren't singing, I wouldn't have been surprised, But the river was flowing, the birds were singing, the sun was rising,
Yeah.
Life was going on for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had to go in and call relatives and finally wake up my 2 sons and tell them that mother had died,
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Bill. Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing I've ever done in life,
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's the sense that in and through the grief, life moves ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's always surprising to me that the sun keeps rising after moments like that. I remember that too. What? My life has just completely changed, and the sun keeps coming up. What? Yeah.
Actually, the sun isn't rising. The earth is turning.
Well, yes. Let's get that right.
We're still kind of outdated in our language.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's amazing, isn't it? How that can happen, how nature just keeps on going
Yeah.
that way, even after all of this. And, you know, do you feel like, I guess I remember in our last conversation, actually, it was a while ago now, but you were saying that if you were thinking about who should do this work, who should be a psychedelic therapist, you know, ideally people who've been through some stuff in their
That's
life.
right. Yeah.
Because it helps us, I think. Yeah.
Remember the story of the Buddha,
Mm.
the prince in the palace who's pampered. And it's when he goes out into the world and he bumps into sickness and death and injustice and all that then he sits under the bo tree and he gets enlightened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know exactly. And I think grief is such a human experience. It's something that's going to come to us all. And I'm sure you and your family, of course, would have preferred, like she said, I don't remember the exact word your wife said that you shared, but I wish I wasn't dying either, but that's life.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Uh-huh.
And so moving, Bill, to share that story with us. By the way, thank you so much that hard conversation. And, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything about this, but I will. That I am sitting with some grief around some news that I've had just very recently about a friend of mine who's very sick with cancer and has family, and it's so painful. Like it's like this. It's a physical pain, isn't it? And it never ceases to surprise me how physical that can feel. Like my legs going from under me when my grandfather died. Like right now, my heart feels really tight. And yeah, I saw the emotion is still there for you many, many years later, of course, when you speak about that moment.
Right. Well, as we say in psychedelic therapy all the time, whatever you discover yourself experiencing, the goal is to move in and through, and through, not to run away from anything or censor anything. Yeah. Dive in. It's part of a healing process.
Yeah, that's right. Go towards the thing. And I remember when, you know, the self-experience that I had, like very fortunate to have as part of the training at Monash, one of the things that happened to me was, I guess what they call, like in Sandgroff calls the coex system, where you move through. And I was moving through different parts of my life, and there were some parts that I wanted to go towards, and there were some beautiful moments, and there were some hard moments, and there was some moments of grief in there. But it was like I was just reviewing it all and kind of moving through. And then there were some that needed a bit more resolution that I kind of dove in to explore, and that was quite amazing. And I, you know, when I went in there, I felt it in my body. I kind of experienced it somatically. And the feelings of different emotions, and then kind of went back to just floating and moving through, which is interesting too.
Yeah, I've come, in doing psychedelic therapy in general, I've come to have a profound respect for the ingenuity, the wisdom, the creativity of the patient's mind. As to how it goes about choreographing the healing process. And often it turns out to be much better designed than anything we could have planned.
Yes. So true.
The patient may think he or she is all confused and screwed up, but there's a wisdom within that person.
Yeah.
And if you respect it, it manifests itself.
Yeah. So often in the early days, I would be doing the preparation psychotherapy with people, and I think, that thing you shared is probably going to come up. I didn't say it to them, but I had ideas about naively what I thought might happen. And every time I was surprised, never what I thought. And every time is so different too. Which is really amazing. And I think that's one of the things that makes this work so fascinating to me. And so, that the thing that you were speaking about each dyad and each therapy pair, you and the client, teaches you so much about humans. also working with the medicine teaches you so much, doesn't it, about the wisdom, the inner wisdom that someone has, which they can so often lose touch with when they're distressed, and we in somatic therapy, we talk about that, like, your body and your mind, your soul kind of knows the way to get to healing, but there's lots of stuff that can get in the way of that. And so one of the things I feel like psychedelics helps people sometimes is to get to that place, to go back to that inner healer or that kind of space of healing. Maybe we've touched on some of this, but how do you feel that this work has changed you and your attitudes to life?
I can't put my finger on any one, experience X caused change Y, kind of thing. Certainly a steady affirmation of, and deepening perhaps of the attitudes I've had. Some which go back to my good old Methodist early childhood, but the worth of every human being, the reality of something greater than ourselves that most of us would call God or the ground of being, or I always like Edmund Sinnott, biologist at Yale, who spoke of the purposive properties of protoplasm. Choose your word. But there is, as Teilhard de Chardin says, we really are spiritual beings who are having human experiences right now. And it's not a matter of belief. It's just a matter of waking up and acknowledging it,
Yeah.
We are spiritual beings, whether we like it or not. And we don't even know what the spiritual is yet. We don't know what consciousness is. We know there's a few correlations in brain activity, but that doesn't begin to explain nobility and creativity and love and all the wonderful things that make us human at the best.
Yes.
So there's a humility and openness to mystery that comes out of doing this work.
I agree. Yeah. Humility is so important, isn't it? And just holding that. I actually wasn't a spiritual person in inverted commas until I worked in bereavement. It was that work so early in my life. I was young actually then. Like I kind of went through a bit quite the pathway quite young. And so I think I was probably, let me get this right, 25 or 20 something, early 20s, early to mid 20s when I finished my training, especially. And I did that placement and, working with families where someone had died or was dying. And it was that work that led me to become more of a spiritual person, because you can't talk. I was having conversations with so many people about either the end of their life or the families, after someone has died, often suddenly, sometimes not, about what happened. And those little moments of, I really felt that person was with me, even though they had just passed away. Or, a family story in my first family personally is that my grandfather died and all the clocks in the house stopped at the exact time. And that he passed away. And there was this one clock that he'd been given as a present, and it stopped. And then it restarted when everyone in the family had arrived to come for the funeral. I was very little then, but it's been a story that's told so much. I can't explain that. And so many families have those stories, that when that person died, this thing happened, or they came to me in a dream, and so that was the thing that I thought then opened me up to, okay, maybe there is something else in the world, or there is this kind of more spiritual perspective, and, led me through to yoga, meditation, and all the things that I do now that are really important to me.
I like to stress that there are probably many flavors of immortality. You know, what happens after death? Well, even that question presupposes time, continuing in time. And the eternal world seems to be outside of time. So it's beyond our linguistic capacities almost to try to think about it or talk about it.
Yeah.
But my knowledge of different states of consciousness from psychedelic work and meditation and whatever, and study of comparative religions, and there are many, many varieties of alternative states of awareness. And we often, many people in Eastern religions take reincarnation for granted as much as we assume there isn't any such thing, and my playful thought is that there are infinite varieties of experiences after death, and it doesn't have to be one size fits all. But whatever each of us will experience will be appropriate and meaningful and part of a bigger picture somehow. But the core insight is that death is nothing to fear, And we've still have, at least in the United States, quite a taboo about death. We don't talk about it. There are funeral homes that still have a red light on the corpse, and people stand at the corpse and say how good he looks. It's almost ridiculous, but we just, like maybe a few decades ago, we didn't know how to deal with sex. And now sex is more open and responsible and even beautiful and respected. And I think the same thing could happen with death. That the baseline attitudes towards death could really shift in Western cultures.
I really hope so.
We'd be a healthier civilization if we could.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope so too. It's definitely not just America, is it? It's all over the Western world that we have this kind of aversion to death, even though we are all going to die, every single one of us. And it's going to happen, and it's a part of being a human and a part of being alive as well. Thank you so much, Bill.
Well, some would say being alive with a body or being alive without a body, But maybe consciousness really is indestructible stuff, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I think that idea of like holding the mystery is such a gift of psychedelics, but also so important in this kind of work. Like, I don't know what happens. No one knows what happens when we die, right? But I'm holding that. And sometimes people will ask me, kids have asked me that question a lot, working in bereavement space, because they have, less filter. They're not shy to ask about that kind of thing in the way that an adult might be. And I, obviously was never able to give them the answer because there isn't one, but just holding that mystery is really important. And I really do hope that in the West we can start to develop better, healthier attitudes towards death and dying, because I think that will benefit all of us in the way that we are alive in the world too.
Yes, very definitely. Birth is a mystery too,
It's wild, right? Like, I don't have children, but I've been close to people when they have, like my brother was born when I was 17, and I remember holding him just after he was born, and it's complete hocus pocus. Like, how does that even happen? Like, he was in there and now he's in here, but we're so much more used to that, right?
Yeah.
So, final question for you, Bill, before we wrap up, we'll begin to wrap up, is what are your hopes for the future of psychedelic assisted therapy in the palliative care space? It sounds like got some great research happening. What do you hope to see developing? Is there any areas you think should be more explored research-wise, or what kind of service structures would you hope for in the future?
I would see it becoming accepted, integrated into the culture.
Yeah.
The use of psychedelics themselves, wisely, responsibly, we know how to do that now,
Yeah.
There's medical applications of psychedelics. There are educational applications. There are religious applications,
Yeah.
But if we use them wisely, which I think we're smart enough to do this time. Footnote here is they've been around for what the archaeological record takes them back 9,000 years anyway to
At
mushroom
least.
stones in primitive societies. So this is nothing new, and they have emerged and been repressed in society after society after society. In ancient Greece, they stayed above ground for a few hundred years, But, the potential benefits in mental health, in world peace, in whatever of them being meaningfully integrated into the culture could be immense. A real evolution of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why not?
Why not? We need it.
There is so much unnecessary suffering out there. Not only people confronting death, but people caught in addictions, in depression, limited by post-traumatic stress symptoms, etc. It doesn't have to be that way. And so we need an army of psychedelic therapists. Where are they going to come from? And I think some of them are going to come from the world of chaplaincy and pastoral counseling, especially in terms of the end of life applications.
Yes, that would make so much sense, wouldn't it? Because they're already doing that beautiful work at the end of people's lives.
That's right. They're not afraid to go into a hospital or hold the hand of someone who's dying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that could be really important, I think. Yeah, I understand why they've rescheduled in the way they have here in Australia, but they obviously with psilocybin assisted therapy is for, depression, treatment resistant depression as well. And I guess that allows some use in palliative care space in some ways, but I would love to see it much more a part of that service structure, that you don't need the mental health diagnosis to be so precise, that they could just use it. That would be really great.
We advance one step at a time.
Yes.
But
totally.
The psychedelics are not only for treating pathology, valuable as that is, but it's for awakening us to what Abe Maslow called self-actualization, realization, having peak experiences as a normal part of being alive. As people like Maslow himself and Eleanor Roosevelt and Albert Einstein did without psychedelics. It's just part of the human repertoire. Let's value it and explore it and learn from it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, like in the indigenous use of, with ayahuasca, for example, we use it in the West. It's been kind of drawn into, used in a very kind of to heal and from mental health issues or distress or trauma, but it's so much more widely used in indigenous cultures, isn't it?
That's right.
For all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk more about the educational, what you think the educational implications are. Maybe that's a whole other podcast. But what did you, when you were thinking that, what do you think that is? Like, how would they be used in education?
Well,
Is that
just to explore the mystery that we are,
yeah.
What is consciousness? What are all these different strata of consciousness that seem to be within each of us? We may go through life without suspecting that they're there, but all of a sudden there they are, And some of these profound spiritual experiences happen in really good atheists.
Yeah. Yes.
It ruins their whole day sometimes. And, I say that facetiously, but it's part of being human to experience these transcendental and archetypal visionary states of consciousness. This is advanced mental health. This isn't mental illness. This isn't getting psychotic. This is becoming creative. It's awakening. And some of our most creative people, like Steve Jobs and geneticist Francis Crick and so on, attributed their insights to their psychedelic experiences.
Yes, I did know. I was going to say that. That's right, isn't it? I knew that about Steve Jobs. That he had,
I mean, there's lots of people who have taken psychedelics who haven't become Steve Jobs.
Yes, of course.
So it's not guaranteed, but it can be very facilitative of creativity. And then the values in these mystical states are really the essence of each of the great world religions. The reality of love, the beauty of life, the value of every human being, the interconnectedness of us all in the great unity that our Hindu friends call the bejeweled net of Indra. That if you think you're alone and isolated, you're deluded. You forgot. And if you begin to wake up spiritually, you will know you belong, you are accepted, you are loved.
Yeah.
You have worth, Powerful stuff.
Very powerful stuff. Very powerful. And that interconnectedness piece, I think, is also something that can be so potent for people who are going through grief too.
Yeah.
You're not alone in your grief, but also even when someone, I talk about this a lot, like when someone dies, their body might not be here, but whatever your spiritual kind of belief set is, even if you're very rational, they're still living inside of you in the things they taught you, in the experiences that you had with them. And if they're related to you in your biology and your DNA, right?
That's
There's so many ways that people stay in the world. I still play the same games that my grandfather played with me, with kids in my life. And so he's still with me in those moments,
Yeah, you had a wonderful grandfather, I think.
Yes, I was very, very lucky. Yeah, I had some, very beautiful moments with him in my life. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about, Bill, that I feel like we've covered some really great...
We could go on for hours, but I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
There's people as a whole need to really become educated about other states of consciousness and the potential of psychedelics as a valuable tool in gaining access to them, and how to use the psychedelics responsibly and safely. In my book, I use this metaphor of if you just jump on a pair of skis without any instruction and start downhill, that's a pretty stupid thing to do.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just as stupid to throw a psychedelic into your mouth to see what might happen.
Yeah.
Like you need to prepare and read and be oriented and be in a trust-filled relationship and have
Yes.
some intentions and be
Yes.
able to choose to relinquish control. You know?
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's hard for people sometimes. I think, it's so important. And part of the reason for me doing this podcast is because I feel in Australia, there's still a lot of misunderstandings, even though we're in the space of using it. And so all of what you just said is so important. And I will put your book in the show notes as well, because I really highly recommend that to anyone who's interested in this space. And not just as a therapist, a lot of people listening at therapists, but there's so many wider implications for your book and so much more, talking about education and religion. And it's really quite a wonderful offering.
Yeah. It's,
yeah.
In the university world, it's not only the School of Medicine, but the School of Theology and maybe even the School of Physics and literature and so on that could learn a lot from the wise use of psychedelics.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of literature, there's plenty of books that have been written after people have had psychedelic experiences and they talk about them and they kind of, or either they're like autobiographical or novels, right? That are kind of inspired by some of the really incredible writing.
You may know the last line of Dante's Divine Comedy. It is love that moves the sun and other stars.
Sure.
That's a core psychedelic insight,
Yeah.
And I feel I should reread the Divine Comedy and look at it as a collection of trip reports.
Yeah, that would be an interesting way to read it, right?
The different circles of hell,
Yeah.
Who knows? Did Dante, was he a natural mystic? Did he eat moldy bread that had ergot in it? Did he munch on mushrooms? We'll never know. But what he is saying is very congruent with what's emerging in the psychedelic world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it feels like that is very true. And who knows, I think that the world needs that message a lot right now, and I guess in another podcast I've said that I just released, so speaking about the implications for psychedelics in conflict resolution and some of the this initial bits of work that have been done in that space. And, it feels like we need the message about love right now. There's a lot of pain in the world.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've traversed so many different topics, and I really want to thank you for sharing. And I think it's really, it's talking about grief for me would feel wrong without speaking about some of my personal experience, because it's so human, And so, but I'm also very grateful that you felt able to share those, Bill. Like was really moving to hear some of that. And really, I think, important for the listeners to as well. Like, this is a podcast which is, for psychotherapists, but also just anyone who's interested in this space. And we've all probably been touched by grief at some stage. So,
in and through.
Yes, exactly. The in and the through, so important for all of us. I'm going to take that message and probably keep remembering that over the next little while, Bill. Thank you.
Nothing to run away from, no matter how difficult,
Yeah. And, and I hope that psychedelics, that message and that ability for people to go in and through with psychedelics can also help us with life, with these difficult moments.
Yeah, and as you probably know, in the ayahuasca religions, there's this tradition of what do you do if you see the giant anaconda this vision of this huge snake. Well, obviously, if you run from it, you're going to have a nightmare. It's going to chase you. You're going to get smaller. It's going to get bigger. Why do that? No. If you see the giant anaconda, you dive into his mouth and look out through his eyes.
Yeah.
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 You become your kundalini, your shakti, your psychic power. You own that energy within you. What a different attitude, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so important. It's such an important message, and I to remind people of when they're going into psychedelics, but also in life, you know, like if there's a big experience of grief happening for you, as you know, to go in, to allow yourself space.
Yeah,
to
and to own the pain of it. You know, grief really hurts. You know, you don't say, "Oh, dear, it's not that bad." No, it is bad. It really hurts. Just as if you're in a war zone and they're dropping bombs on you or something. You know, it's terrifying. But in and through is healing and resolution.
Yes.
If you try to escape it, run away from it, you get stuck in depression and anxiety and tense muscles, and you're irritable all the time.
Yeah. You know, panic attacks are another thing that I've noticed can be like if you're getting underneath that. So often for people, there's a grief. It's not always, but there's very often there's something. That's what happens when it gets stuck.
And one experience often resonates or echoes with others in life. You know?
Yeah.
It's not just I'm dealing with the grief of Uncle Samuel. You may be dealing with about 6 losses before that as well.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And so it's good to take the space, and if you're listening to this and that's where you're at, and for all of us who've had those experiences, it's important to create time so that you can go in and through. Yes. Right.
Well, wonderful being with you.
And, so great, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on the show again and sharing some of your wisdom and also taking it into some more personal places. I really appreciate that. And we'll end there, I think. And I'll put the link to your book in the show notes so people can find that.
Okay. There's an article I just published I might send you to that's very concise about how to safely use psychedelics. Yeah.
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you. I think that's really important. And, in the first episode, if people haven't listened to the first episode with Bill, we do get quite into detail around that as well. So I recommend listening to that. And would love to have that new article that we can also post because it's so important. It's like you can't just, like you said, you can't go skiing down a slope without learning how to do it. And so if people are wanting to do that, it's very important to do it in a safe way. So we'll and for therapists listening as well, there's lots of episodes where we speak a lot about how to do this as a therapist, how to be with people. Because we're learning as we go in Australia. We're lucky enough to be rescheduled, if the medicine to be rescheduled, able to do this work. And we're still always learning. Like I hope I'm always learning anyway as a therapist, but this space is still new, it's still a very new field.
Karl Jaspers, the old German existentialist, psychiatrist, philosopher, says over and over in his too many books that we are more than we know or ever can know of ourselves,
Yes.
And this frontier validates that. It says that's literally true.
Yeah.
If you think you're just a little ego scampering around the world, buying groceries and going to work, you're underestimating who you are.
Yeah.
And in my view, there should be no taboo of exploring the nature of your own mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it
Absolutely.
wisely, do it intelligently,
And
but
do it
it's
safely as you
ridiculous
can.
that it should be considered illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a crazy world.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. Let's move towards the close, and I'll put those links in the show notes, and also recommend people start if they had start from the beginning of the podcast too. I think that could be really helpful from season 1.
Good.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
enjoy the
Thank
day.
you. Yes, thank you so much, Bill. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in following along on the journey with me, check out my Instagram or website details listed in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share this podcast to help get this important conversation out to more listeners.